Okay, I want you to just stop for a second and think about this. I mean, really think. How is any of this possible? How can a bunch of, well, dead atoms create the incredible technicolor world inside your head? Your thoughts, your feelings, everything you're experiencing right now. This isn't just some weird philosophical puzzle. Nope, this is probably the biggest single mystery in all of science. It makes us question, what reality even is. So let's dive in, and we're going to start with the most important person here, you. Seriously, who are you? And I don't mean your name or your job or all your memories. Let's strip all that away. At the most basic, fundamental level, what are you? Well, the scientific answer is simple, and it's also really, really weird. That's it. You're just a collection of non-living atoms. Your whole body. Everything you hope for, everything you dream about, everything you're afraid of. It's all just a super complex pile of lifeless stuff. The exact same stuff that makes up rocks and water and the air we're breathing. Just look at your basic ingredients. Oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. I mean, this is the most common, most boring stuff in the entire universe. There's nothing magical about a single carbon atom. But when you arrange them in just the right way, the way that makes up you, they somehow create something absolutely extraordinary. They create experience. And that is the biggest mystery of all, isn't it? How does the feeling of being alive, joy, sadness, just being aware of things, how does that emerge from a pile of dead ingredients? How do you get a mind from matter? Okay, so before we can even try to answer that, we've got to deal with an even bigger headache. What is consciousness, anyway? We all know what it feels like to be conscious, right? But actually defining it? Wow, that's one of the hardest things for scientists and philosophers to agree on. You probably heard this one. The philosopher René Descartes came up with the most famous starting point. I think, therefore I am. Basically, he said you can doubt everything. Maybe the world is a simulation, maybe you're dreaming, but you can't doubt that you're the one doing the doubting. You know you're conscious because, well, you're experiencing it. That's the one thing you can be sure of. So far, so good. But the second we try to think about anyone or anything else, it all gets super messy. I mean, you assume I'm conscious, and I assume you are, but I can't feel your thoughts. So how do we really know? And what about a dog, a fly, a plant? Where do we draw that line? And this chart really shows you the problem. Some researchers were surveyed, right? And for primates, like a chimpanzee, over 90% of them said, yep, definitely conscious. But then look, for other mammals, it drops. And for something super smart but totally different, like an octopus, it's down to just over 60%. It really seems like our gut feeling about consciousness depends on how much a thing looks and acts like, well, like us. And here's the bottom line. We just don't have a consciousness detector. There's no scientific instrument you can point at something to see if it's on. We're basically just guessing. We're using our intuition, not taking a real measurement. So if we can't measure it, how on earth do we explain it? Well, scientists are doing their best to peek inside that black box of the brain, and right now, there are two big theories that are trying to figure out how it all works. Let's break them down. All right, the two big players on the scene are global workspace theory, we'll call it GWT, and integrated information theory, or IIT. And you can think about them with a couple of really simple analogies. For GWT, think of consciousness as a stage. For IIT, think of it as a network. So let's start with global workspace theory. Imagine your brain is a giant theater. Most of the work is being done backstage or by the audience in the dark. That's all your unconscious processing. Consciousness in this theory is like a single bright spotlight on the main stage. Whatever is in that spotlight gets broadcast to the entire theater, to the whole brain, so it can be worked on. You've definitely seen this before, right? The classic vase and faces illusion. You can see a vase, or you can see two faces looking at each other. But you can't see both at the exact same instant. That's GSWT in action. Your conscious spotlight can only shine on one interpretation at a time. It's either broadcasting vase to your brain, or it flips and broadcasts faces. Okay, now for the other one. Integrated information theory, IIT. This idea is different. It says consciousness isn't about one message being broadcast. Instead, it's all about how interconnected a system is. It's about how much information is woven together. If a network is so tangled up that you can't break it into smaller pieces without losing the whole picture, well, that's consciousness. And get this, they even have a way to measure it, a number they call phi. And this is where IIT gets kind of crazy. It says consciousness isn't just for brains. Any system, whether it's made of neurons or silicon chips or who knows what, if it has a high enough phi score, it could be conscious. It's not about the stuff it's made of, it's about the shape of the information. So if you follow that logic, if you really take a theory like IET seriously, it leads you down a rabbit hole to a really mind-bending question. If consciousness is just about information, how small can it get? How far down does it go? Think about this. Your brain has billions and billions of neurons working together. But what about just one? A single neuron takes in information and reacts to it. Even when you're asleep and totally out of it, your neurons are still busy doing their thing. So, could a single neuron have its own tiny, tiny little spark of awareness? But why stop there? Let's push it even further. What about the atoms that make up that neuron? Or even a quantum particle? You know how in quantum physics they say a particle is in multiple places at once until you look at it and then it kind of chooses where to be? What if that fundamental choice is some kind of baby step towards consciousness? This entire line of thinking has a name. It's an old philosophical idea that's getting a new look, and it's called Panpsychism. And it basically says, we've been looking at this whole thing completely backwards. Consciousness doesn't just pop into existence when matter gets complicated enough. No. What if consciousness is a fundamental property of matter itself, just like mass or charge, all the way down? Now, if you even let that idea sink in for a minute, it changes everything. It completely reframes our place in the cosmos. The line we draw between living and non-living starts to get really blurry. So at the end of the day, it seems like we're left with two huge, totally different possibilities. Option 1, consciousness is a freak accident, a lucky byproduct of complicated chemistry that just happened to pop up here on Earth and maybe a few other places if we're lucky. Or option 2, consciousness isn't an accident at all. It's a basic feature of the universe, woven into the very fabric of reality, just like gravity or time. And if that second option, if panpsychism is right, then our human minds aren't some special ultimate goal of evolution. We're not the peak. We're just one way the universe experiences itself. We are literally the cosmos becoming aware of itself. I mean, the implications are just staggering. Suddenly, the difference between a rock and a brain isn't a hard line, it's just a matter of complexity. It makes you ask some really deep ethical questions, right, about how we interact with the world around us. And our own existence, it becomes part of this epic, cosmic story of self-discovery. So I'm going to leave you with this one last question to chew on. That voice in your head, the one that's processing these words right now, the feeling of you that's listening, is that really yours? Or is it the universe itself, after nearly 14 billion years, finally opening its eyes and using you to look around?
Health is the most precious gift. If this video helped you or someone you love, please like, subscribe, and share so more families can stay safe and healthy.